when we're looking at we're enrolling a client and it has all of this the talk about the COC, the Muskogee County, Russell County, HMIS, and all that explanation, and then it has, it's going to be case notes and this and that and the other, and then you're listing your client, I'm sorry, your all your household members, the minor household members, obviously, because every adult has to sign their own. It would be, I do not wish for my information to be shared in the homeless management information systems. Please note that it's to be used by this agency alone, and the client would sign it. That would be it. Was that to answer your question, Ms. Austin? Okay, cool. Neil, your thoughts. Ginger, you guys probably do as many enrollments as anybody else.
I think this is Ginger, Pat. I think that's a great idea. I too would be more comfortable taking a little bit of extra time to really go over it with the client. And I'd be interested to see what that opt-out form would look like.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, but I think this is a great thing. It would definitely, yeah, this is a good thing.
Cool. All right. Well, on that, we'll go ahead and start moving forward again, trying to make decisions. Yes, the committees, obviously, of the COC and of anybody, boards make decisions, committees make decisions, but having some folks, boots on the ground who do it on a regular, rather than just those who are looking at the numbers and the data is real important. So after that, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Wally, and talk about the new version of Client Track that'll be coming out soon.
Excellent, thank you. I'm not sure who is and who is not aware, but like Pat just mentioned, there is a new version of Client Track that is going to be being applied or implemented in your community. Give me just one moment to get to the right page and share my screen. Okay. I should be sharing my screen now.
Yes, we can see it now, Wally.
Yeah.
Okay, and this should just be one page. You only see the one page, right?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so what we're looking at is the new version of Client Track. So as you can see clearly, there are some changes that are going to come in. A lot of the changes that you're going to notice are mainly visual. There are some back-end changes that I'm not going to necessarily get into now. You can feel free to contact Pat and Charles and them, and they'll send the messages along. But I do want to take you through a couple things. So one of the bigger things is going to be general navigation. So you see here that there's no longer a pin. This is now an arrow. This arrow will stay this way. The screen will resize, and you don't have to worry about pinning it. So it's not going to move all the items. But if you have a smaller screen and you need to see everything at once, you can shrink it down and see everything. The next thing has to do with the way the menus work. So in the past, once you expanded a menu, it stayed open. Now you can shrink it back down. Again, it's just something small that, even though it might not be big oohs and ahs, it is something that helps when your screen, then you don't need to scroll down and figure out where you are. It's all accessible to you right there. As you can see also, to get to your workspaces, things have changed. So now to get to your workspaces, the icons are right here: home, clients, housing, providers, reports, favorites. I'm currently in a baseline work group. So I look a little bit different than what you would be used to seeing on yours, but it's basically everything's right here. Let me actually, you know what? Let me switch over to.
Excuse me, Wally, sorry to interrupt. Is it possible to
ahead.
blow that up at all? It's kind of hard to see on the screen.
Maybe.
If not, that's okay. I can blow it up on my phone. It's not a problem.
Is that a little bit better?
That is actually, thank you.
Okay. Just know that all I did was zoom in on the browser. It's nothing necessarily client track related. I just zoomed in on the browser. So here, what we're looking at are the different workspaces and where they are. So this is from your user's workspace, so you can see the different icons highlight what they are once you go over them. So when you click on it, it'll take you to the client workspace, the housing workspace, providers, everything there. Another thing that is really kind of new and different, and I'm clicking around to be able to show you, is that there's a new favorites. So before, favorites were all linked up top. So if you favorite a page, it would all be like in one place. Now, one place per work group, workspace, I apologize. Now they're all here. So once you go to a place, so I went to a couple of different places, I can then say, okay, that's one of my favorites. And it'll stay there regardless of where I am. So like I'm in the provider workspace right now, but if I go over to home and I click on my favorites, I can go straight to find provider simply because I've already been there and I put it as a favorite and I can find my providers. So that's one of the bigger things. Like I showed before, kind of almost by accident, is that the way that you change workspaces and change your login information is up here. There's no longer a dark mode. What it is now is there's a high contrast mode. So this is high contrast. This is default, slight variance. And then when you're in
Wally.
here, yes.
If I can mention something about when you said there's no longer a dark mode, we found that when you were running some reports that had hyperlinks, if you were trying to print it and your computer was set to dark mode, or your version was set to dark mode, your hyperlinks would not appear. I don't know if that had anything to do with the fact that they decided not to do that. But Charles and Wally and I went through about 2 months of trying to figure out why this one particular user could not, the reports, quote unquote, weren't right. No, they were right. It's just because of the mode it was in that the links would not show. So I don't know if it had anything to do with it or not, but FYI.
Yeah, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but yes, since it works with the different stylings of the page and the HTML code for those technical people, the styles change and the hyperlinks would not show on dark mode. So if you ever have those kind of issues, see if switching would work, and that might help.
I have a question.
Yes.
A question. This is Sandina with Salvation Army. I'm glad you're at the work group. So can we switch within the work group state HMIS and local HMIS? Because we're having a hard time. Like, we have to find the link that Charles gave us to log back into local HMIS. And it goes the same way when we try to find state HMIS, we have to find the actual email, the welcome email to do that. Is there a way that we can have it within our work group and interchange between the two HMIS?
Are you talking about like your local one with Chattahoochee and DCAs?
Yes, correct.
Okay, no, because those are two separate implementations. Those are two separate databases, and they're not working in the same place. They're completely separate. It's almost like having two different Gmail accounts. Yeah, it's the same website, but it's two totally different things that you're working with.
So there's no interchanging.
But Sandina, I can help you to have an easy access link so you're not searching, and I can show you how to do that.
Okay,
yeah, what I was going to say, the best way to do that would be to bookmark the two, like up here, like so have all my bookmarks for different places up here.
It won't let us do that. Well, okay, maybe you guys will show us.
That's in the browser.
It won't let us do it.
Yeah, you have to set up either bookmarks or favorites, either one, depending on the browser you're using.
Yeah, well, we can work that with that offline. I'm sure Charles or Pat can help you with that as well. But that's not a client track thing. That's just a way of the fact that they're two separate locations and they're not together. So yeah, so then as far as that goes, so that's this is where you would now change work groups and change organization. It obviously it looks different, and the way you access it is by clicking on your initials up top here. One thing that is very much different is the way you submit issue tickets. The way that issue tickets are submitted now is on the lower left here in this help icon. So when you click on it, your typical help screen would pop up to report an issue, and then the same general window will pop up. In general, navigation is in general, the workspaces are the same as they were in the past. So like your HMIS user still has the same options and such. If you need to go between, again, if you need to go between work groups, you just switch them here. But as far as the workspaces themselves, they are still the same. So like I said before, so if I click on profile and I want to minimize it, I can do that. Common assessments. So things are still basically the same. There might be some getting used to different navigation, but it is going to remain the same as far as your work groups are concerned. One of the larger changes that I do want to make sure to point on is that there's no longer that symbol up here for households or for families. I apologize, for families. That will be accessed by expanding the screen, by expanding the identity bar. And that will then show you here, quick add family members, the family members, family history. So if I click on family history, it looks like it didn't do anything. But if you notice this happened, I need to now collapse this, and I'm on that screen. So
Wally, can you show me that one more time right next to the name of where?
Yeah, yeah, I am. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard. So this is the entity toolbar. So up here, I'm going to click on expand. I'm going to see those additional options. So I'm going to click on family history. The way I know that it worked is because this refreshed, this up here refreshed, and then I will collapse on here. And now, but I am on back on that screen. So that's one of the bigger changes to the way that works, expand and collapse. There's similar functionality on the various workspaces that expand and collapse, but there's really nothing in that that's been added. It's just that because of the way that the client's workspace is set up, it ended up that family information is in here. So along with that, I just want to make sure that it's for those of you who work with reports that you understand that files on server just looks different. I don't have anything on here. It just looks different, but it will function the same way. The files on server, as will all of your other reports. So all the reports, all the exports, they're going to have a slightly different look, but they all function the same way. So there's no need to change the way you do things. It's just a matter of getting used to the visual updates and such. So are there any other questions, concerns, anything that I might have skipped over that you're interested in?
I don't have any questions, Wally, but I would just like to say that the navigation and the layout of the new version is much more friendly.
I agree.
Thank you. So yeah, so if there's any questions, concerns, or suggestions that you might have as you're testing it or going through, go ahead and make sure to submit them. We're still actively collecting information. Pat and Charles may have a different methodology, so just be on the lookout for any kind of communications in regards to that. We just want to make sure that it works for you guys, for the users. So that's all I have for my demo, and I'm going to send it back to y'all.
All righty. All righty, Charles, you want to talk about updating referral outcomes?
Sure. So let me share my screen. Actually, let me get to the right page and then I'll share my screen. Just a second. Right, let me get in real quick here. All right, so I've got Test Tester pulled up here and I'm on the referral screen. Of course, y'all know how to get there. It's go to referrals, it'll pull up your referral screen. Now, when you go to referral outcome, and I'll go through that again because I went through there kind of fast. If you hit on the action wheel on the referral, that's yours, and go to referral outcome. I can't stress enough how important it is to fill this information out, so to speak. Your acknowledgement date is when you go into the referral and acknowledge that it's there. You have several options here on your referral status. You have first attempt, second attempt, third attempt to contact or unable to leave a message. This is important because you can change this, finish it out. When you come back into the referral, this will actually stay as a first attempt. So if you're on your second attempt, it lets you know where you were at. It lets you know where you're going to. So that's important. And where am I?
Charles, quick question while you're doing that. After we do the referral outcome and make the attempt or whatever, we need to case note as well, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that way coordinated entry can see that we've made contact and, okay, thank you.
Right, right. All right, now, once contact is made, you've set up the appointment, of course, you're going to put in your appointment date, your time. Your result date is when the result happens. Now, this is really, really, really important. And I know it's not a required piece of information, but if you hit rejected, it's going to change this CE event referral result. And as of right now, it's not really triggering anything. Wally and I have been discussing having these options trigger an email back to coordinated entry so that if the client rejected or you guys rejected for anything, coordinated entry automatically knows that they need to re-refer this or close out the coordinated entry enrollment. I did send Wally an email today as well. I don't know if he's gotten it yet, but I have asked him to look into the housing move-in date, which is on the program enrollment page of the workflow, of the enrollment workflow. And when that date gets updated with a move-in date, coordinated entry also gets an email to let them know that the client is housed and they can go ahead and close out that coordinated entry enrollment or exit the enrollment. So it's later on down the line, as we make these improvements, it's going to be imperative that everybody, whether it's, you got to fill in the required fields, that's a given, but these other fields that are not required, are tracking mechanisms and things, not only for you, but everybody else involved in the COC, for every agency, really. Once you get everything filled out, of course, you finish it up and it brings you back and it shows your result right there. So yeah, I mean, it's really important, guys, that you take the time. And I know, you know, being on the other end of this for a while, I know it gets hectic, it gets quick. You want to get through it as quickly as you can so you can move on to the next client. But I can't reiterate enough to slow down a little bit and make sure the information is correct for the client that you're with currently. Trash in equals trash out, guys. I mean, slow down, take your time with your current client. The other clients are just going to have to realize that they have to, you know, wait just a little bit until you get to them. So that's it with the referrals. We just need to, like I said, as we move further on down the line, a no-show is going to be a client rejected. Information only is not going to do anything. But you know, you can close out the referral at that point. That's basically it for the referrals. I just wanted to cover this one page just so we understand how important this referral outcome is.
That should help in minimizing the calls and the emails too from coordinated entry asking what's going on with this, what's going on this, what's going on this.
Exactly.
And it gives an update along the way.
Right. It's an automated communication process, basically. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Charles. You want to go ahead and go over system performance and the document check? And
Sure.
I'm actually going to step to the door. I've got someone standing there.
Understood. All right. So I'm moving over to the reports workspace. And what I'm talking about today is this new APR Caper review. This will put your Caper in a PDF format, which is what everybody is asking for. I've actually shown a couple agencies already how to do this. But basically what it is you'll run your Caper. I'm not sure if everybody knows how to do this, but you'll run your Caper, make the right selections for the date period, all that kind of good stuff. Choose your organization by project type. You'll run the export. I'm not going to run it actually, but you'll run the export. And then once you run that export, you can come in here to the Caper review. And I've already got a few out here that I have run previously. If you'll click the action arrow and you view the report, it's going to take the export that you did, which it finds as files on the server. It's going to take it, it's going to pull it in, it's going to format all the data for you, and it's going to give you a nice PDF format report. It's going to give your, project details, all that kind of good stuff. It's going to give you validations. It's going to give your data quality errors and things of that nature. Your universal data elements, income, chronic homelessness, timeliness. It's just going to put everything in a nice format, which is what most of the agencies that you're reporting to are looking for. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it gives you demographics, all kinds of stuff that you can look at. I won't get into all that kind of detail. I just basically wanted to show you how to run that report. Anybody have any questions? Do I need to run through it again?
What is that one called again, Charles?
All right, so if you go over to, excuse me, if you go over to the reports workspace and you pull it down, it's the very first option under HMIS exports. It's called the APR Caper review. Like I said, basically what it does is it goes out there and looks at the files on the server for any exports that you've already done. you find the one that you want, whatever one it may be. You click on the action wheel and you view the report, and it'll take all those details and everything that the export generates, and it'll format it in a nice PDF file.
The only thing that I wanted to add to that, Charles, is that the hyperlinks, any hyperlinks that are on here, like Q5A, for example, or any of them really,
Right.
when you click on it, it gives you the detail.
Yep.
So it opens up a sub report that then gives you the details on what clients are in this. So unlike running it in, because you could expand that just to show really fast. So even though you could do this same thing by exporting your data and putting it in Sage, the difference is that doing it within Client Track gives you details also. So you'll be able to see who the clients are that are being seen in this report, in that section of the report specifically.
Right. And
Also,
go ahead.
to save on the top in the middle, that little disk, it gives you the options to save as Excel, PDF, the Excel data. Just remember that the Excel data, unless you're in a detail report, will only give you the aggregate numbers.
Right.
And for those of you who have been around for a while, Sandy, I'm sorry, Sandy, Tiffany, Crystal, this is our old fashioned way of reading our APR, and it
Yeah,
breaks everything.
I'm like jumping up and down in joy right now.
I know you are, because you and I when Charles was showing me this, I sort of went, whoo, Tiffany's gonna be really happy. So this is the and it literally, it is your, not only your APR, but is also your sister performance measures, but for your particular project. So this opens up a whole nother way for us to look and do some comparative analysis and process improvement.
Great.
Love it.
All right. Any other questions? All right. We'll move on to the document check. And we're going to pull up our little friend here. All right. So on the menu, and we're just now getting into implementing this, and we're using ourselves over at Home for Good as guinea pigs. We're looking to have this to be ready and rolled out no later than July 1st. But what it is the document check. Some stuff over here so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so if you go into the document check, if you do a quick document check, we've already got some lists up here. The CE and the client documentation is basically blankets. That's for the client. Right now, I've got projects that we have set up for housing. The end game here is to set up a separate list for each housing program or project. All right. So for instance, when I pull up the CE documentation, and a lot of this will be done by the coordinated entry team, but when they go to upload, say like the CE intake, you can just choose file. Right now, there's a choose file in the camera. I have spoken with Wally about trying to see if the engineers at Ecovia could add a scan option where you could scan something directly from the printer as well. But for right now, I'm going to choose a file. I'm going to just choose something that I have on my disk here. It'll take it, it'll upload it. And this, of course, would be a copy of the original. It is on file. Now, if this had an expiration date, which most CE intakes do, the ladies in coordinated entry could go out a little bit, say 90 days, mark that as the expiration date. So when the other agencies come in to check this list, you know, if that expiration date is passed, you know that a new coordinated entry has to be done. Things of that nature. I'm going to go ahead and go down to here. And there it is. It shows you the CE intake and the verification date that it was done. There is a place for comments if you wish to put any in. The good thing about that is if you go into edit this guy, or if you can edit any comments here if you like. Then if you go back into the quick document check and choose that C again, you can actually delete the file and re-upload, or you can delete the whole entry and get rid of it. And you can update or get a new updated file or CE file and re-upload that guy so that it's the most current coordinated entry that's on file. Same goes for the rest of it. If I go in here and say I got some client documentation, this is system-wide. So let's say Safe House gets a copy of a driver's license or whatever, scans it, uploads it. All right, and there's the expiration date of the license is, say, 2 months out, whatever. If another agency comes in here and sees this and see that the expiration date on the driver's license is passed, they can work with them. Same agency can work with them and say, hey, look, we need to update your driver's license. Then at that point, you can, delete the file, re-upload the new file, and update the expiration date, and we're good to go. You save it off and it's there. Now, the only drawback to this is that it's not actually saved into client files. It is saved in a different spot in the disk space that we have purchased for the COC. So if you think you can do that and then come in here and see the file, you cannot. If you do it in document check, you've got to stay in document check, but it is a faster, more reliable way of doing it, in my opinion. Wally, do you have anything to say about that?
Not really. We can get together and try to figure out how to make it so that it does show up in client files, because it would make sense for it to, but you're right. Document check is definitely a good way of storing documents, if for no other reason than that way they check off your list essentially. So you can verify it. So it's more efficient as long as you know what the list entails and what is required of it. We can make a list for pretty much anything.
Right. And now I've got the rapid rehousing list pulled up. This is for, of course, the SGCV. Now I will set up. The list is basically the same no matter what agency does it. However, we would like to have a separate list for each program. That way, if somebody comes to work or a client comes to work with Home for Good, and then they flip-flop, say they don't want to work with us, they want to work with somebody else, then there's 2 separate document lists for each agency. That way, if there's any more flip-flopping going on with the client, there's separate lists out there for each agency. And that's basically it for that document check. Anybody have any questions?
Not a question, but more of a comment, Charles. For those of you who've ever been through a review, for those of you who've ever had to make sure that you had every form for a particular project or whatever, knowing that if you've got rapid rehousing project, you need these 6 forms. If you have a prevention one, you need these 6 plus this other one. And if you have a street outreach, you need 5 plus a different one. It makes it much easier, especially if you are people like me who have to have a checklist and had every file you've ever had in your life had a checklist at the front to make sure what was in there. So it makes it very easy to scan through it. And again, for those of you who have to file for reimbursements, just a word to the wise, unless everything is checked on that checklist, you don't submit a reimbursement because those documents have to be in place before you submit that reimbursement. Just an FYI. Speaking of reimbursements, all of them are ready to go.
I have a
Um,
quick question about the document checks. Charles, you said that each agency will have a separate list for each project within that agency. Like, for example, the House of Time has transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, and rapid rehousing. So does that mean like I could have 3 separate lists for each project?
It will be project-based. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I think this is DCA calling me. I'll call you right back. I'll be right.
Any other questions about the document check?
When do you need the list, or is that list something that you're going to create, or does each agency need to give you what needs to be on that list?
Well, I mean, the list for rapid rehousing, moving to work, the permanent housing type stuff, that's all pretty much given to us by DCA, housing authorities, stuff like that. So that'll be a generic list that we already have. Now, for your specialized lists, for your transitional housing, or like with Safe House and that crew over there, they've got Freedom, Grace, Trinity, all that stuff. If you guys want to send a list of documents that you would like to collect, in addition to coordinated entry and the basic client documentation that needs to be gathered, by all means, get it to me and I'll create the lists. And when I get it done, I will email you and let you know. And then that way you can, use that list for whatever needs you have.
Well, is there any way I could request the generic list that you already have so I can just look at it and see if I need to add anything to that?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do an email blast and send that out to everybody. If you have any modifications that you need to make, or basically additions, I guess would be the best way to put it. Yeah, send them back to me and we'll get them on that list.
Great. Thank you, Charles.
Yep. And if is there any more questions?
Looks like if there's no other questions, then Wally's going to talk about new bed inventory, and then we'll be ready to wrap this thing up.
All right, so there's like a few items that we're working on, that I'm working on with Pat and Charles. One of those is actually an updated way of seeing your inventory. So right now, what's being done, just so that you're aware, is we're entering your inventory for the housing inventory count for the HIC into client track per HUD, essentially. So it comes up in your LSA, it comes up for systems performance to do realization rates and things of that nature. But the problem was that right now it's project by project, and there's no easy way to see it. So what I'm working on, and we'll give you progress as it moves forward, is a way of seeing your beds and your inventory in one place. So the goal right now is to be able to see it by project and program and things like that. So right now, the way it's set up, we can see it emergency shelters, and this is a training environment, so it's not going to be fully accurate if anyone's looking at it and saying that's not right. So this is from the training environment, it's not real data. So right now, according to this, the emergency shelters have 89 beds and 44 units. When we go down, we see the Freedom House from CVJM has 14 beds and 7 units. So essentially I can go through here and just kind of like collapse everything. And then moving on to the next one, I see permanent supportive housing. This is our PSH official programs because disability required for entry, has 185 beds, no units. So it's pretty easy here to see any incongruities or anything that may be wrong, since it breaks it down as the HIC or the LSA would.
Wally.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know how did you get to that point, Wally?
It's not anywhere right now. Right now, it's still in the development and testing phase. So it's not actually anywhere in the production environment yet. We just wanted to give you a preview of what we're doing so that if you have any suggestions or anything going on, you can.
So help me understand, because so when we have this and able to put in our beds, our inventory in, would that eliminate the referrals? So
No.
we won't have to do an appendix J because you'll see that we're already full. Would that help?
That's different. That's you're talking about utilization, and you're talking about like active beds and check-ins and things like that. This is more about what you're, as of right now, it is currently basically what will be on the HIC, or what would be counted for your utilization rates in like an LSA of sorts.
Let me step in real quick, Wally. So that if you remember, Cindina, when we did the point in time count, right after that, we sent over some forms to everyone to say, hey, this is the count that we had on your night for point in time count. And this is the survey. So we matched those one for one. So we made sure that was right for people. Then we said, okay, we had 5 people, and I'm just using numbers, not right numbers, but just numbers. So we had 5 people that we counted, 1 adult, 4 children under the age of 18. And so those are 5 people, but we showed that you have a total of 10 beds. That's what we're talking about here. It's only talking about you have, for instance, in your area, in the way your program is set up now, you may have 5 rooms with 2 beds. So you'd have 5 units, and that would be 10 beds. But in your future facility, you'll have, say, 14 units with, half of them having 2 beds and half of them having 1 bed. So does that explain it? So it's looking at what your inventory is, your total, not what's being used right now.
Got it. But that would be helpful to have something like this so we would know where our inventory is.
And that's the next step of that, is getting this right is the first step. Yes. Getting this right and making this sure that everybody can make adjustments as they need to. And I don't know if Neil is still here, but I'm gonna pick on him because he he'll have a warming shelter. So he may add beds on a particular night and then take them away. It's not that he actually, so those kinds of things, being able to control your inventory as needs to be done. Obviously, once you go to change it, there would be a default, and Charles would go to make sure that things, instead of you put 50 beds, you hit another 0. It's supposed to be, you put 500, which is obviously not realistic. But making sure that people can control their inventory, control their data, so that once we get a good handle on that, then we start talking about utilization. So you can say, yes, 5 of my rooms are full, and we could send a referral. And once that referral was done, then when we could inactivate you in coordinated entry until you had an opening again.
Right, and that's what we're working towards. That's what we're working towards, because one of the things that I did note is that this can be used for those APR PIT and LSA PIT dates of January, April, July, October. Those can be very hard to manage sometimes because your inventory might have permanently changed in February for the rest of the year, that it got higher or lower, but it's not reflected because of whatever reason. But here we have an opportunity to see, like, oh, I took a hit. Why does it still say 14? It actually should say 10, so you have an opportunity to communicate that and update that as need be. So one of those filters is also organization. So when we're looking at here, CVJM. So if I do this, I'll only see the CVJM beds. I have right now, I only have one project in there, but I would be able to see all the projects. So if your organization has multiple project types, transitional with emergency shelter and PSH, so you would see all of them, so by organization, and you'd be able to do that. In addition to that, through here, you can update the record. I'm going to add a feature to be able to create new records as necessary, but if this record just needs to be updated, we can do so here. And one of the good things about this that I've been updating is not only that I added contact information, because that's very important, of who requested the change or who made the change, and comments on here like, fire, lost 4 units, something like that. So why was this change being made? Things happen and we need to make changes. We just want to know for the future proofing, why was the change made? Because eventually on somewhere, someone's going to ask, In addition, when we're here, they asked a lot of questions on detail of the beds: chronic homeless veteran, youth veteran, other veteran. Okay, so as we're adding information, if you notice, this total beds information will update. So I have 5 here, 6 here. I actually added a chronic youth bed. So this number is updating as I'm going in and going through. But my units also went up. So I have 10 units now. So when I save that record, it updates here as well. So we can see all the different kind of beds and whatever. This will also greatly reduce, when done properly, it will greatly reduce any flags on the LSA. And it will also get you one step closer to being able to upload a HIC as a community versus having to enter things manually. But we need to make sure that everyone is on board and able to provide an accurate accounting basically at any point in time. Because should anybody higher up, let's say the powers that be, say, okay, how many permanent supportive housing units do you have available right now in your system? We can select permanent supportive housing, and we know that there are 185 beds. Same thing. Alternatively, it's like, okay, how much dedicated housing do you have for families? Okay, households with at least 1 child and 1 adult. And we can search that and say, okay, emergency shelter has this many, permanent supportive housing has this many. So there's various benefits and implications to this, but there's definitely work to be done. And I am definitely open to suggestions on how to improve this for the community in general. Details and documentation aren't quite out ready yet because of we're still in the preliminary phases, but I definitely wanted to show the community that this is where we're headed. Any questions or anything? Okay.
Well, and not so much a question as I wanted to point out, thank you for making the comment about documenting why you were making the change. Nothing worse than if you're like me, over the age of 25, you go back tomorrow or heaven forbid, a year from now and go, I know we had a reason for doing that, but dadgummit, does anyone know what that reason was? So yeah, making sure you note those changes and why they were done is real important. Yes, the slides will be available after the meeting. We won't be posting them today. They will go out on Friday, but yes, they will be made available. And we'll send the recording out as well. And they will be posted in our newsletter that comes out on Friday as well. That's a lot of information we covered today. A lot. But all, I think, going in a positive direction. If nothing else, to be able to make some data-driven decisions and letting all of the years of building this robust system come to a point where it's actually working for us, and helping us to work smarter and not harder. it's been a journey, but glad we could all do it together. Any questions or comments? What dates are we looking at for the document check? Let me see. And okay, so the document check, Charles is going to start sending out the template of what's already out there, and we can start implementing that probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We'll probably try and roll it out by organization, so first in, first out. But once you get it, he gets it from you. 2 to 4 weeks to get it in, and I'm being very, very pessimistic about the times. He has a tendency to get things done a lot quicker than I think, but so as we're not rushed, and so we make sure that everybody gets what they need, how they need it. Also the opt-out, we can have that for you in the next couple of weeks. We'd like to start using it on July the 1st. And the new client track implementation, Wally, tell me when it's going, are we ready to roll? And if so, then we need, we'll figure out a scheduling date, but I thought we were waiting on something before we rolled it out.
As of right now, we can work on that with specific dates. The main concern, not concern, but the main thing that we want to make sure is that that everything is working as intended. So if there's any process that is done basically on a daily basis, power users, super users, whatever, agency admins, I don't know what you call them in your community exactly,
Sure.
should be able to access the system with Charles, that upgrade environment I was in where I was showing you, and test out the reports you run on a weekly, monthly basis. Just make sure that everything's good to go locally.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yep, absolutely. And you can see we didn't script this because, and I'm looking at a couple of you in particular. I know that you're going to be running APRs in the next couple of months to close out your HUD grants. So, in fact, Charles has sent me a list of all of the HMIS users, and I have failed to answer him to tell him which were the quote unquote power users or the system admins for each of the organizations. And so I promise in the next couple of days, I will get on that and make sure that he has that, because yeah, we would want folks to test it out. We're about to end up a month. So starting June 1st, at least for a month, we would like to have several people to try it out for at least a month. It means you're going to be doing some double stuff, but just to be able to make sure that if it gets broken, we break it in the testing space. So I want you to try to break it. So if there's anybody here who wants to be, that does not consider maybe their system admin or their organizational admin, but wants to go in there and try and play around and break it, please let us know via, put it in the chat box here, or send Charles or I an email, and we'll be glad to put you on that list as well.
I do want to note that the upgrade environment is a copy of your direct copy of your production environment from around mid-March.
Mm-hmm.
So around late February, early to mid-March, around that time, it's a copy of your production. So anything newer than say mid-March, probably not in there. But if you were to run reports and run exports from like last HUD fiscal year or whatnot, you should be able to get something that's close, if not the same as what you would run from the current production environment for the same time period. And I say close because there might have been updates you made in production that weren't made until after the copy. But as far as like the process itself would be the upgrade environment that exists now. Test it, break it, let us know what you broke. Once that's done, it'll go into your training environment. So once all that is done, your training environment will change. So you can get all users accustomed to it a little bit. And then whenever we're ready, that training environment will go into your production environment. And that's when it becomes your everyday use.
Why can't we just go ahead and send out a group email with the link to the upgrade? Everybody's current credentials that you're using to log into the live database will be the same credentials you use to log into the upgrade. why don't we just let everybody get in there and
Yep.
start playing and try to break it?
Sure.
Absolutely works
Sure.
fine. And absolutely. And Wally, thanks for pointing out the different steps of the process, because I wasn't even thinking about the fact that we will have to transition to training, and then move to move from training then into production. So to answer to that was the long version, Jamie Lee, of the question, the answer, probably looking at September 1 to be realistic, giving everybody a chance to play it. So we're playing in the test environment for a month. That would be June, the month of June. July, looking at doing the training. And being honest, we're in the middle of summer then. A lot of folks are going to be in and out and everything else. So let's say in July and August, to be able to do it in the training environment. And also that way we can, to all of the other folks who aren't here that are scheduled to come to our our annual membership meeting in August, we can show them too what will be happening, and making sure that everyone's aware that on September 1 we go live with the new production. And like Wally said, back in March is when the training database was duplicated for this testing process. And one of the reasons that we did not push further, because in fact, I believe Wally and Charles and myself and our account manager, Marie, were talking about a rollout of July, but there were some other communities who had an older version of Client Track that was going to be not serviceable very soon. So we took a step back a little bit to let those go ahead and go through the transitions, and so we would sort of step back a little bit and let those folks who needed it a little bit more than we did, because we're on like version 18 or 19. Some of them were like on version 14. So anything else on that, Wally?
No, that's generally the crux of it. That's the gist.
All right. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Before we wrap this thing up, we get to go out, and it's time for us to pay some bills around here, so we got to get moving. All right. Well, again, thank you guys for joining, and we'll send out the recording and the slides and have it also in our newsletter on Friday. Y'all have a great one. See ya.